right now I'm breathing. Right? If this breath stops, then then this life ends. And that will definitely happen, and I don't know when. So then following what it says in Lam Rim and what it says here in Panchen Lama's text. So I may die today, and I don't know at all that I will be in lower realms when I die. Like I think that tonight will come, but if I don't take refuge properly, and I die today, then the lower realms could come before tonight. I may have plans for tomorrow on Sunday, for work this coming week, but death, and a rebirth in the lower realms can come before that, for me. So some part of me, as I think that, the feeling might arise, oh no, I'm a good person. I won't go to lower realms. That's for other kinds of. So then we have to check, right? This is what the teachings say. We have to check our own mind, right? So, one point, right, there are a lot of points that one can contemplate this. One is, I don't know what actions I did in past lives. Whereas past lives are beginningless, so they're infinite. I have no idea what kinds of actions I did in those lifetimes. But the karmic seeds of those, right, are there and will cause rebirths according to those actions. Then if I honestly assess myself, right, I can check, right, like when I'm doing some kind of Dharma practice, how intense is my motivation and my concentration? How much does my mind wander away from the practice? Are those even complete karmas? Like to have a complete karma, we've been studying that, right? There has to be like if it's a virtuous action, there has to be like a clear, positive motivation. Right, first a clear, positive, unafflicted state of mind. Like love or compassion. Then there has to be a clear motivation. Out of that love and compassion, I'm going to do this practice for the benefit of others. And then Shantideva, in his Guides of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, says, if you're distracted when doing practices, then they're not very powerful. Then, bringing it to completion, like going all the way to the end of the practice and then dedicating well. Again, with like a clear, positive motivation in one's heart. Then if I compare, right, like when I'm angry, how intense is my motivation and my focus? Somehow it seems like it's easier to focus and have an intense motivation when really angry. That's because my mind is more familiar with anger than it is with Dharma. Then the same with like desire. Like, do I have to make any effort? Like, to practice. Like, when I want to practice Dharma, it takes some effort, right? But it seems like when I'm giving rise to desire, it's totally effortless. Because I'm so familiar with craving, grasping, desire. So if I look at my mind, then it's totally clear, right? That it's much easier for me to give rise to anger or desire or kind of dull ignorance. Right? If I try to give rise to wisdom, understanding, emptiness, it takes great effort just to make a little bit of progress, right? But like foolish topics, wrong understandings, they come without any effort at all. So if I look at my own mind, then my mind is my teacher. It's showing me that I am much more familiar with anger, with craving and desire, and with ignorance, than I am with compassion, renunciation, wisdom, contentment. Like if I want to cultivate contentment, then it takes effort and focus. Whereas craving just come naturally without any, they just arise like weeds popping up everywhere. So that's because my mind is more familiar with those things. Which means that's mostly the karma I've created. So if what arises easily in my mind is anger, grasping or craving, confusion, then most of the karma I have must be like that. See, like great bodhisattvas are totally different. For them, extremely powerful, like huge, infinite compassion arises naturally. All the time, day and night. When they see sentient beings, that just happens spontaneously, without effort. But I can see if I introspect, I'm the opposite from them. Like for me, right? If I see a sentient being who's like difficult, without any effort, instead of compassion, anger, annoyance, agitation arises. If I see someone who I think is in some way like is attractive or can give me something, right, then grasping arises. So for sure, right, my mind is not like the mind of a great bodhisattva. My mind is controlled by the delusions. And what's the result? Most of my karma that I've created and most of my mental energy are delusion, three root afflictions. What's the result of the action done out of the three root afflictions? Mostly rebirth in lower realm. So then we come to the conclusion, right? It's definite, actually. If I die without refuge in my mind at the time of death, because I have so much negative karma, for sure I'll be born in the lower realms. Right? And this is based just on my own introspection. Nobody has to tell me that. I don't need a clairvoyant person to tell me. Right? The Buddha himself said, the Lord Buddha said, right, where you take rebirth is according to your own karma. Karma done out of the three root afflictions of anger, desire, and ignorance leads to rebirth in lower realms. And if I look at my own mind, for sure, right, throughout beginningless lifetimes and up till now, and even in this life, right, it's so easy for me to give rise to anger, attachment, ignorance, that for sure I'll take rebirth in lower realms. There's no doubt, actually. If I die today, then by tonight I'll be in the lower realm. If I die tonight in my sleep, then tomorrow when everybody else, all of my friends and family wake up in the human realm, I'll find myself waking up in some lower realm. So we contemplate like that to intentionally give rise to a sense of concern, of fear. And like in Buddhism, accurate fear is a positive state of mind, actually. This is a reasonable fear. Fear that my own uncontrolled mind, right, like a crazy elephant, like a person person totally, or person or an animal totally crazed, right? My mind is like that. It's been totally crazy, giving rise to all kinds of negative states, right? Anger, jealousy, pride, grasping, craving, always, right? Sometimes from morning till night, right? It's like only there are like maybe short breaks. Mostly it's just one affliction after another. With a mind like that, absolutely for sure, right? I'll go to the lower realms. And we've already studied, right? What are the lower realms like? Eons of meaningless, horrific suffering that just go on and bring no benefit at all to yourself or anybody else. So it's just like totally horrific. A horrific waste. Especially when I have this precious human rebirth. And I don't have to let that happen. I have a choice. So at this point we could feel almost like a person, let's say it like on the edge of a cliff. You say on the edge of a cliff during an earthquake. Like it's quite a dangerous situation I'm in. And where I could fall, where I will fall, if I don't find a refuge. Like already I've suffered so much in this life, I think. But that kind of suffering that that I could easily fall into is much, much worse. It goes on much, much longer. A total waste. Terrible pain with no meaning. Which can come at any moment. So like the Panchen Lama says, right, I'll just read it again. Aghast at the searing blaze of suffering in the lower realms. The hell realms, the hot hells, he's referring to, what's he referring to there? The hot hell realms, and the cold hell realms, the hungry ghost realms, and the animal realm. So you feel like aghast, horrified at the terrible suffering. And you don't think of it like some distant place, right, or some distant place for some distant people. But we think at this point, that's where I came from, and it's where I'm about to fall back to. So what or who can protect me from that kind of suffering? So the Panchen Lama says, right, we take heartfelt refuge in the three precious gems. So here, right, afraid of the suffering in lower realms, we turn to the three jewels of refuge: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So you could think of the Buddha, of the Dharma, and they give that analogy, right? So like the Buddha is like a doctor, the Dharma is like the medicine, Sangha is like the nurses, But in brief here, like we think, okay, so I'm terrified, aghast, horrified at the suffering of lower realms. So I turn for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. How do they protect me, right? Because you have to have faith now, otherwise it doesn't help. Right? So there are two main points, I think, here to think about. One is, it's said many times that if you're thinking of the Buddha, right, just taking refuge in the Buddha itself, just thinking of the Buddha and of his teachings and of his community, if you think of them, then at the time of death you will not be required of that. Just by thinking of them with faith, you're already, it's a positive state of mind, right? Faith, devotion. So just that alone protects you, actually. Actually, they're very, so one is if you're thinking of that time of death, then it's absolutely, they say it's guaranteed you won't go to lower realms. Another point that's in the Lamrim is just thinking of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha with faith in this life. Like, naturally you create positive karma just by thinking of them. And through your faith, because faith is actually a positive state of mind. So automatically, just by thinking with faith and put your hands to your heart, or just with your mind, you kind of visualize the Buddha. Just that alone is purifying your mind. You begin like connecting to and aspiring to the kinds of positive states that the Buddha embodies. So one thing, right, is just by thinking of the Buddha, at the time of death, you're protected. Another is even in this life, thinking of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, your mind gets better. It gets purer, so therefore it protects you from the lower realm. Then also the Buddha taught the Dharma. So particularly the Dharma, just to not go to lower realms, right, is what we've been studying. Like, so avoiding negative karmic actions, right? How to avoid the 10 non-virtuous actions. How to perform the 10 virtuous actions. How to do, so not killing, right? Not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, not lying, or harsh speech or divisive speech or meaningless talk, and stopping covetousness, ill will, and wrong views. Right? So by following that advice of the Buddha, we actually cut off the cause for rebirth in lower realms. So this is another way main way that actually the Buddha protects us from rebirth in lower realms, is by giving teachings, right, about how to practice. So the basic teaching is that, right, how to avoid the non-virtuous actions. And then how to live, right, practicing kindness, patience, generosity, thereby creating positive karma, good rebirth. There's so many practices the Buddha teaches, right, that cause rebirth in the higher realms and protect us from lower. So this way we give rise to a kind of faith. In this sense, faith, right, is not, faith is like trust. Khentsur Rinpoche says it's like, in a sense, faith is like the faith that, you could say that it, actually he mentions 3 different kinds of faith. One is where you look up to the Buddha, and you think, I'd like to have your protection, and I'd like to become more like you. Then like an even deeper kind of faith is, she says, it's like the faith that a young child has for their loving mother. Based on experience, that the mother is always there to pick them up, to help them when they're hurt or sick, to care for them. So it's like a deep trust, come out of relationship to the Buddha, in this sense. And then the deepest kind of faith, she says, is like the faith that when you're thirsty, that you have that in water. So these are like relationships. It's not some kind of faith like a mystical thing. It's a faith of trust, of knowing, of reasoning, right? Seeing, okay, whereas the Buddha does bring peace to my mind. The Buddha's teachings on how to give up, how to let go of attachment, how to let go of anger, how to overcome ignorance. That as those bring peace to my mind, then I develop a deeper and deeper faith that the Buddha taught the Dharma, and that the Dharma is effective in transforming my heart, my mind, thereby protecting me from the lower realms. So for a few minutes, just contemplate like that, and while doing so, just try to feel a sense of refuge in your heart. So we'll do that for like 5 minutes.